As you may know, the symposium is the first of a series of symposium that have been planned to be organized annually starting this year in the run-up to the establishment of the ASEAN Economic Community by 2015. As the 2015 timelines draw near, we recognize that more effort are still needed to ensure that our common goal of building the ASEAN Economic Community is realized. We are also aware that there are issues and challenges about the AEC that we need to address now. Thus, through this symposium, we hope to be able to exchange views, understand key issues, and also to offer some solution towards achieving AEC by 2015. Today, we have set out an ambitious agenda, trying to assess the progress of ASEAN economic integration. The topic for discussion, ASEAN Open Sky, ASEAN Single Window, ASEAN Investment Area, and financial integration are the key areas we think are important for the AEC. Thus, I would like to encourage you to be bold in your discussion and come up with realistic and candid assessment of the AEC agenda. Such thinking will only help us to ensure that the measure under the AEC blueprint will be timely implemented and our integration target will remain on track. Before we go down to the specific detail of our discussion today, I would like to address three key aspects of the AEC. One, where are we now in terms of our integration effort? Second, how successful our regional initiatives have been in recent years, and what are the key challenges remaining? And third, what role can the private sector play in ensuring the success of the AEC? So these are the three questions I will try to stir up discussion for this symposium this morning. So what has the AEC achieved so far? To be fair, I think we have made a steady progress since the leader first envisioned the establishment of the AEC in 2003. As of the end of August this year, ASEAN has implemented 72% of the measure due for the period of 2008 to 2011. This implies that all relevant measures that the country agreed to implement for the last 3 years have already been put in place. In terms of trying to facilitate free flow of goods, a new ASEAN Trade in Goods Agreement, ATIGA, has been in place since 2010, and efforts are actively being pursued to strengthen trade facilitations through custom integration and also implementation of the ASEAN Single Window. Services liberalization is also going on smoothly with the full implementation of an entry into force of the 8th Service Package of Commitment expected by end of this year. I'm pleased to inform you that ASEAN is ready to sign the ASEAN Agreement on the Movement of Natural Persons this November in Phnom Penh. This will be the first landmark agreement for the region to facilitate the movement of skill level across the country. Countries are also in the progress of progressively reviewing their reservation list to fully implement the ASEAN Comprehensive Investment Agreement, ACIA, while in the area of finance, work is already underway to facilitate the integration of capital market and banking sectors. In relation to the other AEC pillars, review efforts have been made in ratification of various transport agreements, promotion of competition policy, consumer protections, intellectual property right to enhance the region's competitiveness. Last month, the first consultation meeting between the SME Advisory Board and the Economic Ministers was held where key strategies were discussed to promote SME industry in the region. Initiatives to implement the ASEAN Framework for Equitable Economic Development are also currently being explored. Finally, in the support of greater integration with the global economy, countries are actively working towards the launching the start of negotiation for the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership by the end of this year. Thus, holding this symposium today is quite appropriate as concern over the globalization have started to surface again. But in our view, ASEAN is the region's best strategic response to external uncertainties. The region is best served by harnessing our collective competitive strength while ensuring at the same time the integration lead to greater economy of scale, increased economic efficiency, and higher productivity capacity. Of course, we are also aware to achieve this outcome, we have to make AEC work. So what are the challenges? Here I see the implementation of AEC as paramount. Despite the progress in a number of areas, many ASEAN measures are still pending as at the end of August 2012. These include measures on trade facilitation, custom modernization and standard and conformance, service liberalization, investment, agriculture, consumer protection, and the ratification of transport agreement. Such delay may undermine the success of the AEC. While countries have made progress, they still have to ensure that the regional commitments are implemented in a way that is consistent across the country. We are now need effective implementation in a coordinated manner of what has been agreed and more agreement on outstanding areas. For example, countries should incorporate regional initiatives within their national development plans, strategy, and budgetary allocation to enhance its contribution to the regional integration process. We also need to ensure that the ASEAN priorities are set right by focusing on those measures that will have the most immediate impact on the creation of an integrated market. Regulatory reform will not only allow the country to be more efficient through improved economic policy, and also will help to address market failure and international spillover with inevitable consequence of trade flow and investment. As a region, economic integration intensified interdependency among our countries, and also as externality magnified as a result of opening up our economies. We have to ensure that our individual competitiveness is preserved. I'm pleased to inform you that we have now instituted since this year the holding of an ASEAN regulatory dialogue. This dialogue will help to promote the development of regulatory framework and as a basis for strengthening critical structure, regulatory reform in ASEAN, particularly those that will facilitate market integration. To the extent that the implementation of ASEAN agreement requires the understanding and the confidence of the private sectors, and active involvement of this sector is crucial. This aspect of the AEC should be further strengthened. Formal consultation with the private sectors and regional authority may still be used, but there's a need to develop a new and innovative strategy to maximize the dynamic contribution of the private sectors to integration. The ASEAN Secretariat and the ASEAN member states have fully support such kind of engagement, and while that is the primary reason why we are here today, since the AEC is a market-driven process, we have to make sure the market are well informed, consulted of our own initiative. In the same manner, we should continue to involve other stakeholders in the integration process even more. This requires more efforts, particularly at the country level, to communicate how AEC works, which will also help to offer greater transparency of the process and secure greater buy-in from the population. In closing, let me reflect one important lesson that we have learned from the current situation today, and that's the importance of coordination and shared responsibility. Now that we have been challenged again by the adverse development in the world economy, I think coordination will continue to be as relevant as before, as we continue to embrace globalization and integration, and as a result of the increasing interopenness, interdependence of our economies. Under the AEC, we are moving towards the creation of a collective wealth that will benefit all of us. But there is no free lunch. As we have journeyed to the 2015, there's a need for each and every one of us to be responsible and committed. We sincerely hope that this symposium will provide a useful platform for understanding the AEC. We also hope that your insight will help us to refine our strategy in the successful implementation of AEC by 2015 and beyond. I thank you very much for your participation, and I look forward to the discussion in this symposium. Thank you.
I should express my sincere thanks to the organizer and sponsor of this very important symposium, the ASEAN Secretariat and the Government of Australia, for collaborating closely to organize today's event. There is one particular reason for me to consider this symposium very important. The holding of this forum is timely. It takes place at a time when questions arise, some doubts mount, and skepticism develops as to whether ASEAN will be in the position to proclaim in 2015 the realization of the ASEAN Economic Community as planned. The environmentalists have their own views to hold that the ASEAN economic integration will fail. They strongly believe that the unattended climate change issues will cripple the endeavor by the 10 member states of ASEAN to integrate their economies. It is held that climate change has disrupted monsoon patterns in the region, and this will adversely affect health, agriculture, food security, and the economy in general, aside from creating further suffering on the region's poor. Discussions have also heated up in the last 2 weeks that ASEAN economic ministers at their meeting in Siem Reap last August were reportedly called for a 1-year delay for the realization of the ASEAN Economic Community. That is from 1st January 2015 to 31st December 2015. And if I more recall, discussion in Siem Reap was that minister thinks that it should be prioritized measures for the member states to come to the 2015. There is a concern that some measures may not yet be completed by then, and minister thinks that while we continue to assign 2015 as the target dates, there might be need for us to prioritize some measures. Distinguished participants, being deeply involved in the policy making and policy implementation toward the ASEAN Economic Community, I could only wonder why we should spend so much time and energy to ponder whether we will eventually cross the checkered flag in 2015, either on 1st January 2015 or 31st December 2015. The gradual process of integration has also been taking place in the areas of services and investment since 1990s. All this was and still is followed by efforts to complement the liberalization with facilitation and economic cooperation agenda. Hence, we can observe that regional cooperation has been extended to include, among others, custom integration and modernization, development of standards and mutual recognition, both in goods and services, investment facilitation, protection and promotion, cooperation on IPR, development of SMEs, integration of private sectors, and initiative to assist the less developed member states to overcome the challenges of regional economic integrations. Most recently, ASEAN agenda for integration has been extended to include competition policy, consumer protections, and others. Having the target dates of 2015 does not necessarily mean that everything should be 100% by then. How can we measure up, for example, that our work on integrating the investment regime has reached 100% score? How can we say that our work toward the free flow of goods, services, investment, and labor has been completed and scores 100%? By the way, what exactly do we mean by the term free flow here? How can we measure it? I was not directly involved in the conceptualization of an ASEAN Economic Community or on the drafting of the AEC blueprint, but I believe that when our ministers and leaders agreed on the target date of 2015, they meant it as a landmark year of ASEAN to complete most of the major tasks of eliminating barriers to an integrated ASEAN. But for the purpose of our discussion this morning, it is worth looking back to where we were all coming from. ASEAN is a combination of 10 different countries that are inspired to walk the journey into the future together. We are 10 differing political systems, 10 nations of unique cultural values, 10 countries of different historical backgrounds and experience, 10 economies of different levels of development. The private sector, especially those who have benefited in one way or another from the ASEAN economic integration process, has a key role to inform fellow businessmen of the merit of ASEAN works, assist them to cope with the challenges, be part of their solutions. Governments cannot do this alone. The private sector should step in and develop a sense of broader ASEAN business community with special attention to the SMEs, young and women entrepreneurs, the vulnerable, and the less fortunate. We need to think strategically on what we, government and the private sector, can do together to overcome the challenges before us. Let us not declare that we lose the war when in fact the battles are still being fought. Thank you very much.
Come in when I need to. Can I open the floor for any questions? Okay, it's always very hard to start with the first question. I'll come up with the first question. Perhaps Pak Iman, as we know that in the last ASEAN summit held in Phnom Penh in April 2012, the leaders have recognized that the progress has been made so far in trying to implement the AEC by 2015, and have actually called for all ASEAN member states to double the effort and also to prioritize the key measure to be delivered by 2015. I just want to seek your view as to how you see that the prioritization should be undertaken, and also to seek your views as to what are the critical areas that the ASEAN member states should be focusing on in this prioritization process. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Lim. I think it is a quite challenging question to answer. But I think there are many ways to try to prioritize our work toward the 2015. But I think the key words would be try to focus on high impact and quick wins. High impact, what we mean by high impact? I mean that we should focus on measures that could bring the high impact on the realization of ASEAN Economic Community by 2015, but giving due regard to the impact to the SMEs, to the small guys. Why I should underline this? Because for all these years, the strong resistance comes from this part of the business community, the unfortunate, the less fortunate community, the SMEs, the young entrepreneurs, the women entrepreneurs, who see ASEAN more as a threat rather than an opportunity. It is important, therefore, for business who could benefit from the ASEAN economic integration to take part in outreach program, to share your success story with these guys, and bring them into the front page of our process.
I heard the phrase regulatory reform, which actually brings that you're pushing now towards looking at the domestic aspects of regulations per country to be, let's say, consistent with the regional agreements. That tends to be very politically sensitive. But nonetheless, it is very important if you want really a coherent regulatory regime within the region. Would you now consider that after all the efforts at the border, that it's high time for the leaders to make clear statement that the way forward towards AEC 2015 is think closely and seriously about regulatory governance, policy coherence, and what you call regulatory reform?
It is time for us to look into the horizontal issues, which is the regulatory reform, the regulatory adjustment and alignments, to bring our national laws, regulation and procedures in conformity with our ASEAN commitments. But we cannot just simply depend on the leader's statement. Again, as my remark illustrates the point, it is important for us to talk to the small guys, to talk to the larger audience, to bring these people into the front page, and together with the governments and other business sectors, to pursue the process toward the economic integration by 2015 and beyond. So again, perhaps our leaders could say something about the regulatory reform. I think ministers have repeatedly reported to the leaders in the past 2 or 3 years about the necessary for us to do the regulatory reform to address the issue of so-called legislative impediments to the implementation of ASEAN commitments. It's time for us to work hand in hand between government and the private sector to build support from the base. So the government, of course the leaders, could be in a very good position, in a very comfortable situation to pursue rather quickly the regulatory reform and bring all those laws and regulations and procedures in conformity with ASEAN commitments.
Though what we are trying to do at the moment for AEC, this is very much a regional initiative. In order to make the regional initiative work, we will need member countries to break it down to incorporate into their national policies and strategy. And that not only apply to the government, it also apply to the private sector. The private sectors who are currently operating in ASEAN have to look at ASEAN as a single market, has to actually incorporate all these measures into their strategy as to how they can seize the opportunity when AEC come to fruition by 2015. Ms. Ito-san from Japan PR mission to ASEAN.
I have 3 comments to make. First is regarding the involvement of private sector. As you may know, the Japanese Chambers of Commerce in ASEAN have a federation, and they make every year the recommendations to improve the business environment. And this is one of our efforts to have a better business environment, but also it is a contribution to have integrated markets in ASEAN. And when you look at those proposals, it is really closely related to the issues to be done for the ASEAN economic community. And we would like to request once again to take up the issues and try to accommodate, because it is also the interest of ASEAN, and certainly it is a useful tool to work on. And secondly, while we are listening to you two, I have not heard much about the integration IAI as the integration initiative. While all the countries have to strive for the achievement of ASEAN economic community, I think particularly the 4 countries needs more attention, and I think it is not just the dialogue partners, but also ASEAN. Within ASEAN, action has to be taken, and it should be also taken up by ASEAN themselves, including the private sectors, what they can do. Often it is difficult to take up the issues of integration, regional integration issue in national agenda. For example, when we look at the request for the Japanese assistance from certain countries in bilaterally, it is only reflecting the bilateral and not necessarily reflecting the importance of regional undertakings. So, as Dr. Lim mentioned in his presentation, those necessity to work on the regional issues have to be incorporated in the national work as well. And thirdly, I was a little surprised to hear the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea issue from Dr. Iman. Of course, it is very important to have a peace and a stable situation in the region. Nevertheless, those issues are not the inflicting the effort of ASEAN community building when they're talking about institutional arrangements within ASEAN. That should not have anything to do with this discussion on the South China Sea issue. And I think that should be separated, although we see that also in overall situation. But I think ASEAN countries, especially the people working in ASEAN economic community issues, are ready to work together without worrying about that area.
For those who are not familiar with the abbreviation, this is the Federation of Japan Chamber of Commerce in ASEAN, in short, FJCCIA. It was our SETGEN's initiative to hold the dialogue on an annual basis with the Japanese business community who has been operating in ASEAN for quite some time. During the dialogue, you give an opportunity to the private sector to share with us what are the issues they face in terms of trying to set up the operation or even to expand the operation in ASEAN. And through each dialogue, a lot of issue was raised, and we have actually responded to every single issue that was brought up by the Japanese community. We even consulted at the sectoral bodies on the way forward, and also get the support and endorsement from the senior official. And we really appreciate because it shows, demonstrate there was a strong interest and commitment on the Japanese business community that ASEAN is definitely the place to do business in this part of the world. We will definitely take up the recommendation from FGCCI to speed up the integration market, because it's not only the benefit for those who are investing in ASEAN, but also more for those who are actually in ASEAN itself, who are operating in this region. On the IAI, this is something close to my heart, because I was in the ASEAN Secretariat 10 years ago, wearing a different hat, and IAI was actually started with, and I think the whole idea was to try to see how we can actually try to expedite the integration of the CLMV country into ASEAN itself. And then there was a lot of effort being put forward. The ASEAN 6, or the older members of ASEAN, have actually came forward to even to provide technical assistance in terms of showing them how to walk the rope, and then what need to be done, what need to be set up in order to be able for them to undertake all the obligations to the agreement that is seeded at the time. As we work towards AAC by 2015, we have to see ASEAN as a region, as one country, not 10 countries. At this point of time, we have 10 countries with different level of developments, and this is something that we have to narrow the gap so that we can move as a region. If you look at the time when the CLMV country ceded to ASEAN, we start with Vietnam in 1995, then followed by Laos and Myanmar in 1997, and Cambodia in 1999. If you look at the time frame, it's been 13 to 17 years since they joined ASEAN, and there's a need for us to really sort of look at the whole picture realistically as to how we can actually expedite this integration process. As I mentioned earlier on to the senior officials and also to the CPR, that it's not a silver bullet to the integration of CLMV to ASEAN, but we have to make II more focused. II stands for Initiative for ASEAN Integration. We are now guided by one vision, which is to establish an ASEAN community by 2015. Under that, you have three pillars: political security, social culture, and economics. Under economics, we have our AC blueprint. And I've been trying to pass a message to the senior officials to say that, for the next 3 years, as we run up to 2015, all the resources we have in an II should be geared to help CLMV country to implement the measures that's been stipulated from 2012 all the way to 2015. This will ensure that we can actually come as a region and implement the measure which the leaders have adopted back in 2007. So this II is quite crucial, and we're also working very closely with all the dialogue partners, including Japan, in terms of helping us to how to expedite the integration. And we are, as I mentioned earlier on, based on the pursuance of the decision from the ASEAN Leaders Summit in April, there's a need to prioritize some of the key deliverables to be achieved by 2015. Once this prioritization has been approved and endorsed by the ministers, hopefully before the summit in November 2012, we can then, at the Secretariat, sit down again with the dialogue partners to look at how we can actually streamline all this assistance to work towards the prioritized area so that we can have one community by 2015. As you know that the ASEAN Minister for Agriculture and Forestry, they actually entered into force an agreement on what they call the ASEAN Plus 3 MGC Rice Reserve. And under this scheme, each of the ASEAN country, also the Plus 3 country, have contributed to stockpile rice to help our ASEAN member state and also the Plus 3 country in the case of emergency. Will it be in the case of volatility in the fruit prices? Will it be in the case of natural disaster in each country, as to how we can actually help them to meet their basic community requirements? This appeared here, in short, the agreement. It's already entered into force in July, and then they're in the process of setting up a secretariat. They'll be based in Thailand, and this will be actually endorsed by the ASEAN Ministers of Agriculture and Forestry next week, who are meeting in Laos, Vientiane with the Plus 3 counterpart. Last year alone itself, the Ministers of Agriculture was also trying to look at the possibility of setting up a similar reserve system for other basic community, which is critical to ASEAN in terms of our own basic community requirements. And this is something that is to be taken up quite seriously, because in terms of food scarcity and in terms of reflecting to climate change and what others natural disaster we can face up with. Regard to populations, right now we're looking at 600 million. And then this is how big the population is. And even as we speak, today we also have some initiative from the United States. It's called Market, just for something easy to remember. Market stands for trying to maximize the agriculture revenue through knowledge and then economic trade developments. So this is how they are trying to provide us to how we can actually help our farmers not only just to try to move the food around the region, but beyond the region, to also to address food scarcity in a global scale. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. But Iman, if you got anything to add?
Yes, the question or the point that you raised only remind us of the fact that we actually face multifaceted challenges. First, how to integrate our economies by 2015 and beyond, of course. Secondly, how to ensure that the development gaps are narrowing rather than widening. And the third issue would be how to address the new issues of food security, energy security, climate change, and others. I think while trying to continue with our efforts toward the 2015, some real action has been taken up. In terms of services, for example, it allows our business to invest in other ASEAN member states. Just a small example of how we could try to address the food security is that when we were in Siem Reap, I met with the Indonesian guys having companies in Cambodia. And this company works in the area of rice distribution. So these Indonesian companies investing in Cambodia to take part in the distribution of staple foods in Cambodia. They buy the rice from the farmers in Cambodia's villages, they put it in the storage, and they could sell this food to rice to Indonesia or to any other countries in the regions when the need arises. So this is kind of food security that we will try to develop, securing the supply of staple foods in other countries, not necessarily to pile up all those foods in our countries. So again, we try to address the multifaceted challenges here, and I think leaders and ministers have quite clear that we need to address this. What we try to do, perhaps at the sectoral ministerial level, is to come up with a clear mechanism, clear time frame on how we could try to address this issue.
I think this is an appropriate time for a policy architecture question. As we talk about the AEC, the goal is to create a single market and single production base. My question is that as we march to a single market, are there perhaps risks to integration? In the creation of an enabling environment as a result of the AEC, the theory is that we would then have equal opportunity. But equal opportunity does not necessarily equal outcome. To that end, I would like to get your view, both Dr. Lim and Mr. Iman Mali. What does integration mean for example, equal outcome? What does integration mean for perhaps development gap in ASEAN?
Basically, in ASEAN, if you recall the last summit we had in Bali last year, the ASEAN leaders have actually adopted the ASEAN Framework Agreement on equitable economic development. There was this way we are trying to put more emphasis on trying to narrow the development gap between the ASEAN member states, and also try to reduce poverty eradications in the region. And we have actually been, compiling all the various initiatives that's been undertaken by various sectoral bodies as to how we can actually narrow the gap. And in the sense that sometimes the question will come back to you, do we know the gap, what's the gap in the first place? And whether, how gap the big is, and whether it's been narrowing or widened over the years. Again here, currently we're also doing another study with the help of also from Australian aid to try to see how we can actually come up with indicators to measure where the gaps are, and then first is to identify where the gaps are and how we can actually come up with indicators to monitor whether the gap has been closing over the years. It's very important for us to be able to integrate the whole region, because it's a benefit to be able to see the region as a country rather than 10 different countries, because even for private sectors, when you come to invest in ASEAN, some will say that it's easier to invest in this country over the other country, partly because the rules and procedures are in place, or the legislation has been enforced, while in the other ones, there are still some challenges ahead in terms of trying to implement what has already been agreed upon in the domestic legislation. It's very important to have, because when we talk about setting up the AEC by 2015, what the leader envisaged is that we have a region where we talk about having a free flow of goods, free flow of services, free flow of investments, free flow of skill labor, and also free flow of capital. When we talk about trying to have free flow of skilled labor, even I come from Brunei, and then I come from a rather a country with a very small population, and we definitely need a lot of human resources to actually help us to develop the country. And we are actually open to bringing skilled laborers to come in. And so far to date, the issue of skilled laborers has been addressed through the service liberalization, where under service liberalization, there are 4 modes of supply. The last mode of supply, mode 4, is talking about movement of natural person. Again here, there are restrictions being imposed as to when an investor comes to another country, what type of skilled labor they can bring on board. But what we hope to do is to try to change all this. We have already come up with an ASEAN agreement of movement of natural person, which will actually be signed at the summit in November 2012. In that agreement, we will not be only looking at moving skilled labor under the trade and services. We'll also be looking at skilled labor under trade in goods and investment, so that this will be a rather comprehensive agreement to help to facilitate the realization of some of the objectives the leaders have set themselves up for when they agreed to establish ASEAN by 2015. So the integration market will be not only just beneficial to the private sector, but also to the people from all walks of life. In the case right now, if someone were to want to travel from one ASEAN country to another country, there are still some requirement for visa requirement. This is something that ASEAN countries also trying to look at when we reach the ASEAN community. Is it possible to have an ASEAN visa-free to allow to facilitate tourists among the ASEAN country? And so for those who are coming from outside ASEAN country. So there's a lot of benefit as we can actually derive from a more integrated market than just what we have and closely knitted 10 countries.
I'm the member of Advisory Board of ASEAN. We had a meeting in Singapore and Kuala Lumpur before. We are concerned on the ASEAN as one country, and my program is on the narrowing the gap. In last meeting in Kuala Lumpur, I'm asking about that. Is there any model how to execute this program? We have talked with our Singapore friends, and we have discussed detail on how we settle down this program, because most of the time I met many Singaporean friends and working out to develop the Indonesian capabilities and make it a joint operation and joint venture. What we need is that this will be actuated by the ASEAN Secretariat. And for example, on the 24th, Malaysia is coming also to Semarang and willing to make a collaboration with Indonesia. So the role of ASEAN is very important. That I would like to ask. Is there any program already from the ASEAN Secretariat in narrowing the gap? Thank you.
On the Pak Alia's question about narrowing the development gap, as I mentioned earlier on, sometimes before we can undertake this huge task, we also have to understand where are the gaps and how is the gap being addressed. Is it narrowing or widening, and what can be done? And I responded earlier on, we are very grateful to the Australian aid who is currently doing a study. We should be finishing by end of this year, which not only try to identify where the gaps are, but also to come up with what they call indicators as to how to monitor whether the gap has been widening or narrowing over the next few years, and also to come up with recommendation. In terms of the second question, in terms of what the ASEAN Secretary have done so far, when following the accession of the Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam to ASEAN, in the Secretariat we've been sort of arranging for the attachment of officers from CLV country, at least to explain to them what ASEAN is all about, and as a members, what are the responsibility and obligation they have to undertake, and then also to try to find out whether there's any sort of area where they require further technical assistance to address all this undertaking of obligation. And then we have also been working very closely with the CLV country in terms of trying to shape up the work plans is to address some of the gaps they identify themselves, because under the ASEAN circuit, we do have the CMV, Economic Minister meeting. And then one thing that I believe not many of you know this, they come up with their own action plan. And this action plan is actually implemented on a self-funding basis. All this time, people looking from outside is that when Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam come up with a plan to try to narrow the development gap or to expedite integration, they're here looking for support from dialogue partners. But in their own initiative, they come up with an action plan, and I was participating in that meeting. They actually endorsed their 2013 CMV action plan, and they're actually pursuing on a self-funding basis, except that for some area, they do recognize that the assistance from external party is required because they don't have the capacity to do so. Things like trying to put up a legal framework, trying to build institutional capacity. This way we can actually sit down with the dialogue partners to see, join hand in hand, how we can actually help them. So they're doing things in their own stride. And then on top of that, every year we have IAI, Initiative for ASEAN Integration Development Forum. The next one, the fourth one, will be organized in ASEAN Secretariat in October. Again here, this is to share with all the stakeholders, also includes our friends from dialogue partners country and also funding agency, to share with them the progress that the CMV country have made in terms of trying to integrate themselves into ASEAN, and where are the other areas which they need technical assistance. And even for information, as we speak today, there are still the ASEAN 6 countries doing what they can to actually to help CMV countries to integrate into ASEAN. I mean, one example that I have come up across recently, even before we went to the AA meeting in Siem Reap, was Thailand organizing what they call it, a workshop in Bangkok, by bringing CMV country to look at how they can actually undertake the obligation under ATIGA, the Agreement on Trading Goods, and also ALPHAs. So this is something, it's ongoing activities, and Secretary will come in where we can, because we've been also sending staff to the CMV country to actually to help them with how they can implement the measures. Recently, we sent on to Laos, trying to help them to see how they can actually to look into their tariff nomenclature, how can be harmonized based on what's been agreed by member country. We're also very fortunate that there are some capacity building program that's been incorporated under the various ASEAN +1 FTA. One that's worth to mention is the ASEAN Australia New Zealand FTA, where they have been providing a lot of capacity building to the newer country in terms of trying to implement the rules of origin, trying to transpose the tariff nomenclature to HS2 2012. So there's a lot of in parallel activity being undertaken to help to expedite the integration of CMV to ASEAN. I think with this, if I may, I would like to sort of close the session, and I also like to thank you for all the questions you have raised. As I said, this is the first symposium, and we intend to have a series leading all the way up to 2015, and we'll try to do it in every single ASEAN country with a view to outreach to all the businessmen, is to tell them what the ministers and the leaders are looking at when we try to establish AC by 2015. But more importantly, I'd like to thank Pak Iman, our guest of honor, for taking the time to actually to share his view as to how we can move forward. And I know he got a lot of things in his office to get back to, including a delegation from Turkey, which is coming right after this. And thank you, Pak Iman, again for coming all the way to spend your time with us, with the private sectors and the government official. Thank you, Pak. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, for this very stimulating discussion. May we now invite His Excellency Dr. Lim Hong Hin to present a token of appreciation to His Excellency Mr. Iman Pambagio.